welcome to another episode of One. For those that are tuning in for the first time, I am Justin Arnold. And in case you're wondering the premise of our podcast, the title says it just like that. We have people on here. I talk myself, and that's it. We just want to bring people's lives a step further, whether it be personally, professionally, spiritually, emotionally, and all different levels. And I'm just really looking forward to today's guest that we have on here today. We actually connected via that demon called technology, but there are some pluses in it, like connecting to this great human. He's also an author just like me. He also understands pain and trauma similar to me, but I want to just chat with him because he's got an incredible story. He's got an incredible book, which we'll talk about. And that's what we're here for today. So Chris Sears, I want you to introduce yourself, tell people a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get this rolling.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me here. And it's funny how, people can connect together sometimes. And you had posted something on Twitter about your own story and your own life. And I like to think of something that I heard one time called an uncommon commonality, which is, those things that are not something that everybody has, but when you do have them and you share them with somebody else, like purpose through pain, that's something that you just instantly feel a connection on and just want to be a giver about, so reached out to you and wanted to, hear about your story and share my story as well. And just talk about these things that a lot of people don't like to talk about. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a tech executive. I work for a company called Salesforce in my day job. I'm also, like you said, an author, a reluctant author, because I didn't want to write the story that I wrote. But at the same time, I've found a whole lot of value, and writing has really, in a lot of ways, changed my life. So, looking forward to sharing that story with the world, and if we can help anybody, that's the goal, right?
That's the goal, right? I mean, you said something very similar, like you wrote the story I don't want to write. I kind of feel the same way. Before I get to that, though, for those that have been listening to me for a while, it's been a little bit of a break. As you know, I just recently published. If you didn't know, I did. I'll put the link for my book, but that's why we haven't had podcasts on here. Been pretty busy putting that out, among other things. So, but yeah, like you said, you did a book you didn't want to write. Let's talk about that, because personally for me, it was like mine started, I went on this mission trip with a friend, which that story in itself is a whole book in a way too. But how that happened, it was like one of these things where like he just asked me to donate to this organization. And I was like, financially, I wasn't in a place to do much. So I started giving 25. And then he asked about 6 months later to give more. And he wanted me to give 100. And I was like, gulp, 100 a month? What? But I kind of go like, it's all worked out, and it turned into me going to a country I've never been to go teach entry-level entrepreneur to people that just don't have the opportunity of. So it's kind of cool. But through that, this guy I've known since high school literally didn't know a lot of my story, because long plane rides in a foreign country, not really watching TV. He could maybe understand. My Spanish is broken. I hadn't taken it since college. So
where'd you guys
go? Oh, sorry, Dominican Republic.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And cool. Not like the nice beachy vacation-y spots. Like we're in the inner city ghetto, like rabid dogs running. Like I don't want to paint it as a bad thing, but like where I was staying had bars in the windows, and you heard some horrible things at night happening in around you, and you just everything was gated bars, and like it wasn't the safest area. Like, anyways, long story short, like he's like, I had no idea. And like his first response was like, I didn't know you went through all that. You should write a book. I'm like all, whoa, no, like, and two, like nobody wants to hear my crap. And three, all this self-limiting stuff, like I can't write a book. Nobody wants to hear my stuff. I'm not putting my stuff out there. That's some traumatic stuff. And like also the little bit of the toxic masculinity got into my brain. I'm like, man, that's going to make me look like a weakling or a wuss or all these different things. So I'll shut up about that. But I like, why your reason? Why did it come to you on one? Maybe you should tell a little bit about it, actually. Kind of like tell a little bit of people. I know this isn't the easiest conversation, and I tell people to never get back. I don't know, kind of feel the same way, but yeah. Why don't you share?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share. Like you had mentioned, this isn't something that I enjoy talking about necessarily, but at the same time, it's fundamental to my life at this point in time, and we'll get to explaining that why. But yeah, my personal story of my own writing journey starts. Well, actually, let me go back in time a little bit. So a quick background about myself. So I've I'm a tennis player. I've been playing tennis since I was 5 years old. It's an important part of my life. I'm an athlete. I love to compete. These are just, things that are ingrained into me. I've always been a lifelong questioner, very curious, challenger, like anything that's going on in life. I'm always, challenging everything. Right. That's just kind of my nature. I went to Purdue University, had a,
Ooh, Purdue. My
yeah.
wife went to Indiana, so you
Oh.
guys.
Nice. Yeah, we're not supposed to be friends, I guess. Yeah.
No, I won't tell her. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry.
That's awesome. So I went to Purdue and I was a business management major, and my whole career has been in technology. So I worked for just various technology companies over the course of my life, and specifically in a sales related role, whether it be sales leadership or sales just individual contributor level roles. Today I work at Salesforce, and my whole life has always been really centered around a lot of that. That's where I focused a lot of my learning and my life and my attention into, and that's where the mastery of my domain was, I guess, if you will, and where I felt pretty content and happy to be. I'm married. I'm been married for almost a decade now, coming up this year, and my wife is an amazing woman. Her name's
10
Felicia.
years.
Yeah. So
I guess been coming, like we're gonna hit 11, but we just hit 11 this past year. So wow, we got more in common than I thought.
Yeah, I was just joking with her the other day because she told me our 10-year anniversary was coming up, and I was like, wait a minute, is that the one where I'm supposed to get you like a new ring or something like that? And she was like, I don't know. That's very.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that was basically what I got. I was like, damn it. Anyway. We've been married for 10 years, and she's an amazing woman, and we were having a great life. Honestly, we were both successful in our own personal careers. She's a successful educator. She's a principal of a charter school, and did Teach for America, and super talented, driven woman.
Wow.
And she's
That's
got
awesome.
two different master's degrees. Like, she'll probably be the Indiana State, Secretary of Education someday, probably, if I had to guess. She's just an incredibly talented woman. So long story short, her and I both, we were on a pretty traditional, trajectory, I guess, if you will, in our lives. We had a happy marriage, and successful careers, and things were going good. So we decided we want to start a family, and just natural, right? Like we were always excited about having kids someday, and along the way we decided we wanted to start trying for a child about 3 years ago or so. And we weren't like one of those like super intense couples. It was like, hey, like, let's monitor cycles and all this crazy shit. But I feel really bad about people doing that stuff, because it's pretty intense. I don't know if is that your experience?
No, we were like, we have a lot of people around us that have had to work really hard. They didn't have it till their like 40s, that had to do all the different things. Like, right. And like, I feel like, I don't want to go into too much detail, but if like, it wasn't hard. Let's just put it that way. It wasn't. And I feel grateful because I have a very fertile wife, and apparently I'm doing all right. So it's like, we actually had to we were like, after 3, we're like, we got to do something. And I wasn't willing to get snip. So TMI there, but TMI, but no, go ahead, because like, you're grateful for those. You realize this is a cool thing. So you're already winning in your mind, and from life, business, marriage, everything's sounds really great. Correct. That's what so I just wanted to catch people up. So so go ahead. Yeah,
absolutely. So we decided to pull the goalie, if you will, like 3 years ago or so, and we weren't like trying kind of thing, but at the same time we weren't not trying. So we were excited about someday of having a child, and a couple of years later we found out we were pregnant with our first child back in October of 2019, I think it was, or something like that, is when Felicia officially told me that, we were pregnant and expecting our first child. And we were so excited because, it's something that we've been, just excited as hell about ever since we were, really had first met. But at the same time, we've been, it'd been 3 years since we really had been, ready for this journey to start to happen. And we were ready to kick this thing off. So, it began like a normal pregnancy, just, whatever. Like, it was, I don't know. I'd never gone through this before as a first time father. And it was, just, I guess, what you typically expect from, the Hollywood pregnancy or whatever. It's, photo baby shoots and, bumps growing and, people reaching out and all that fun stuff. Right. The good stuff that we always hear about pregnancy. About 5.5 months into that journey, my wife unexpectedly went into labor, and when we were at 22 weeks and 6 days, and all of a sudden, our daughter was born out of the blue on March 15th of 2020, which, if you recognize that date in any way, shape, or form, that's also I personally remember that date for so many reasons. But on March 13th was a Friday. That was a Sunday. Was the 15th, and on March 13th, that Friday. That was the last day that I was actually in the office at Salesforce, because the pandemic, that was the first day that everything got shut down. So,
like, people talk about 9/11, sorry to pause you right there, but I think for at least a lot of people, this date I'll never forget, because it was the date my life was changed too, in a lot of good ways, but like, I'll never forget, like, I woke up March 15th because I was in a routine, but I had no one to really train or nowhere to really go. And my gym was shut down. And I was just like, I'll never forget it, because it was one of these days where my youngest daughter, who was 5 then, pulled me aside, and she was like, I was kind of, for those that don't know, I come across really happy. I am most days, but I'm human too. And I was kind of down. I was kind of depressed, and I was kind of like stressed and thinking and da 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 da. And she, like, it's like she noticed it, and she's like, Dad, let's go for a walk. And she was like almost a point of nagging that I was almost annoyed. But then I was like, you know what? F it. Like, let's just go for a walk. I got nothing else. And that started in where, like, we've turned it into, like, we were always outdoors doing activity, but it wasn't really, there was a standard to me to hang out with my kids, but now they became a standard from that day on, where we're getting outside and going for a walk or a hike or something, at least 30 minutes, no matter the element. So I'll never forget it. It changed my life, turned me into an author, blah, blah, blah. So you change your life too. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's actually, it's funny you mentioned the walk thing, because we can talk about that later on. But
I'll put a note here.
but yeah, because there was a certain walk that my wife and I took every single night as well, that changed our lives, that I attribute to the reason why we're still married today, and that we that's I don't want to spoil the story, but
go finish the story. We'll talk about the walk. I got a note here. Going for a walk. Ask about it. We're good.
Awesome. So on March 15th, 2020, so right as the pandemic was really kind of starting to change everybody's lives, my daughter, Emilia Quinn Sears, was born. So she was born at 22 weeks and 6 days, and 1 pound and 1 ounce, and she's terrifying, man. Like, I mean, just beyond terrifying. I mean, it was the scariest and best day of my life, but at the same time, like, we didn't know if she was alive or dead. My wife just started bleeding, in our house, and we rushed to the emergency room, and we thought she was gone. I mean, I had no idea. The entire drive there, I all I could think about was, oh man, we just lost our first child. This is devastating. And then we get to the hospital, and we're getting checked. She's getting checked up, and they were like, yeah, we did an ultrasound, and they were like, there's still a heartbeat. So she's, we were like, holy shit, like, she's still alive. Like, they checked my wife, and they were like, well, you're fully dilated and going into labor, and we can't stop it. So the baby's coming today, and we're like, oh shit, so they rolled us immediately over to labor and delivery. And we sat there and had all the doctors and neonatologists and all the people come in and talk to us about what we're going to expect. And honestly, I was just in a daze going, I don't know what the hell to expect, a few hours later, our daughter was born. She was like I said, she was born at 22 weeks old. I mean, that's the rarity of being born at that young of an age and surviving is, I mean, it's like a 5% chance, just even be born and survive. So my daughter survives, and we kicked off our journey of the NICU experience, basically. And that first day already showed me everything that I needed to know about my daughter. She was just the most incredibly strong and courageous little girl that I've ever met. And she's my little hero. But it was the start of a lot of things to come, I guess, when I started to see how strong this little being was. So yeah, it was intense. It was an intense day. Not to mention the fact that, like I said, the pandemic was taking hold at that point in time, and nobody really knew what was going on, and the hospital was changing. But luckily, we were all able to be there together. Actually, my parents, my wife is from Texas originally, so her family wasn't able to be there. But my parents, obviously came to the hospital that day, and that was the last day that they were allowing anybody even into the hospitals. So that was actually the only time that anybody in my family ever got to meet my daughter, was on that day. And that was my mom and dad were able to be there, which I'm really grateful for that. But that really kicked off a unique, weird experience with this whole entire thing already being weird and unique and, you know, first time parents. So, so I'll pause there if you have any questions, I guess.
No, I just, that's a powerful story. And like, I am not gonna lie. I was like, for those who are listening, like my eyes were starting to fill with a little water. Like I was getting emotional just because like anyone listening that's a parent, and I know I got a lot of parents that listen to this, like the love for your child. And when you hear stories like this, if you went full term, you're grateful. Like you start to like I was just thinking like when I kind of told you, but like it was easy. Like one thing I left out, like one of our kids, like we got pregnant when my wife was on birth control. Now she admits she was like kind of not taking her stuff every day, but still it's like, that's how easy it was. And we are so grateful that we got 3 healthy children, went full term. Some went longer than, you know, full time. Like it was to the point where like, oh my God, we're getting news. But and the births were all really, you know, there was only one stressful birth, and that was birth of my son. But that's a whole other story. But like everything worked out like in a good way. So when I hear yours, it's like, I just feel a certain way. Like I can't imagine. And
that's the name of the book.
Exactly. Like I'm not trying to.
No, I know.
But like, I can't imagine. And I know we talked about this yesterday, but if anything, like this is why I wanted to bring you on here, because I know people personally that could relate. And like the thing, like you just said, 22 weeks to survive. I think that in itself is incredible. So you start asking yourself why. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, that's my question. Like, you know, I know that's what connected, like you realized it took you a while. Like, so what so continue on, like what kind of happens after that?
Yeah. So then, you know, the NICU experience kicks off, and the NICU is just the most intense place you can ever imagine, man. Like talk about, I can't imagine. Like, I mean, if you've never been in the NICU in a life and death situation, like, I mean, it is literally hour by hour, day by day, you know, like it's an intensive care unit. I mean, it's a place where very sick people are. Luckily, you know, in a weird way, sometimes, you know, the NICU can be a totally varied experience for so many different parents that go into it, because you could get admitted in the NICU for a day or two because your kid just, you know, was born like at 36 weeks and totally healthy, and they just want to make sure that, you know, everything's okay before they discharge them. Or you could have, you know, a long haul stay like our family did, you know, where you could be in there for 4 or 5 months. You know, some families I've heard families that have been in NICU experiences for, you know, it's something like 6-8 months, or eventually you get put up to the PICU, which is the you know, the next level up, you know. I guess, you know, you eventually get kicked out of the NICU, and some people do, and they end up staying there for a really long time. But anyway, this place is a traumatic environment. I mean, the binging, the bonging, the, you know, checking life-saving equipment all day, every day, all the questions. It's just intense, man. So my wife and I, when you know, as we're watching our daughter go through this journey in the NICU, we're still in the mother baby unit of the hospital, and you know, we're freaking out. I mean, honestly, it was scary. It was, you know, I look back on that time in particular, and I remember, you know, the whole pandemic in a weird way was a bit of a blessing for us, because it isolated us from the rest of the world at that time. Like, I mean, we could literally just be by ourselves. I mean, I didn't have to worry about like people rushing to the hospital and whatever. It was, you know, you can't be here. So like, you know, it was nice to have, in a weird way, my wife and I just have that 2 or 3 days in the mother baby unit to process what the hell was going on in our life together. So, which was intense, obviously. And then at that time, we decided to make a pact together to start journaling every day to our daughter, because this was a really, really traumatic environment. This is the first time I'd ever written ever. This kicks off my writing journey, you know. So I had never been a writer. I guess, you know, I write emails or case studies for business class or stuff like that, you know. But, you know, you know, a formal kind of just writing project, I'd never really done that before in my life. So my wife and I, we decided to try our best to document this journey for ourselves, for our daughter, and really the intention, you know, was to document Emilia's experience, so someday we could give this to her, because it was unreal what she was going through and how she was pushing through a lot of stuff. And then, you know, I'll fast forward a little bit to the whole NICU experience, because I write about that in detail. So these journals ultimately became the basis of the whole first half of the book, of writing about Emilia's experience and our experience in the NICU. So I took the journals and then took, you know, chronologically, you know, like laid it all out as to what was going on with our entire journey. And that became a really important part of the book itself. But during this time, we didn't know what to do. We just started writing basically. And that was a relief. And it was something I look forward to every day. And it was something that, obviously ended up ultimately changing my life in a weird way.
What kind of like, you might've mentioned it, sorry, apologize for a second, but like, what kind of like, was there something that like you had to write? Like there was something with me for that, but was there something that like, I have to start journaling, I have to start writing? Was there like a sign? Was there something that came to you? Like, cause like, I think that's key for anybody going through stuff. Like that's the last thing people want to do. They want to like, if anything, we want to be in our own feelings, which is totally appropriate, but it's just like, like no one thinks to like, oh, this is happening. This is horrible. Let me write it down. Like, so I'm kind of curious how that came, because I think it's so key, like, especially for people I know, like your experience is definitely your experience, but the emotions and feelings that you're feeling could be very similar to the emotions and feeling somebody else. So you guys can kind of like, even though my experience is different than your experience, is like the pain and the things and that I've gone through, how I respond and how I felt could be very similar to you. And so like sharing that, there's a comfort in that, and you can lean on somebody with that, and it can get you somebody else through it. So anyway, so I'm kind of curious, like what?
Yeah, it's a really good question, honestly. I don't know that I have the best answer for this, but I will say this. The reason why I started writing, and the reason why I asked my wife to do this with me during this entire journey, is I knew how important something that you kind of get prepared and train your whole life for certain things you don't even realize you're training for. And
isn't that interesting?
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. You're a lot of your experiences in your past life, when you get put into a traumatic environment, it just kind of comes out naturally, right? Like, and you don't even think about it. Well, for me, balance has always been a really important thing in my life. Living a balanced existence in general, and
we're similar on that again.
Exactly,
like brother from another brother over here. Go ahead.
Exactly. Actually, that's one of my most important core values that I've discovered on this journey, and not only in something that I had always held very important in my life. So like exercise every day, and trying to learn something new every day, and writing every day. These were things that I had already did regularly, but it wasn't something that I was like, eat healthy, whatever, like these were things that I did, but I wasn't like, it wasn't some prescriptive program. At this point in time, when we were in this traumatic environment, I was like, I know that we need to do everything we can to keep ourselves healthy, balanced, and whatever is going on. So like that was
important. That's huge. That's massive. Like, listen to that one. Like, because again, I see it. I work with these people in my gym. We are so busy helping everybody else, managing our emotions, that what do we neglect ourselves? Like we neglect ourselves, but you just like, boom, like light bulb. When we take care of ourselves, we can better take care of everyone else. Right. It's so simple, but it's not. And I just want people to hear that and repeat that. And like, you do come first. It's not selfish. It's selfless. Get that through your head. Anyways, go ahead. I just boom. I want to make sure people caught that. And then I repeated it because they need to hear it again and again and again. I
totally agree. And actually it was because of Emilia. It was because of my daughter. I needed to be my best self for her in that environment. Like, and I couldn't do that if I was, not sleeping well, not eating well, not having a mental space that I needed to be concentrated on her. Every day when you're in the NICU is amplified experience as a parent, right? Like you it's hard to describe, but every single day with her is a miracle. And I don't think a lot of parents treat their kids that way. I know they think that way, but I don't think that they're forced to think that way. And the NICU, it has a way of amplifying that, of like, look, every moment with that child that she lives another hour is a miracle in a weird way, so like it's hard to process that stuff. And like, I needed to be able to be present for that. And to do that, I needed to do these other things. And that was why we started that. Man,
I think that's key too. Like every moment you get is a blessing. Like you're an optimist thinker like myself, but a lot of us like, oh, why is this happening to me? But yours is like, oh, wow, I'm just glad I get another day.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly
the same thing happening to different people, but your mindset is grateful.
Yes.
Others, why? I mean, not that you weren't asking that, not that there's like this internal struggle, like not like it was two dogs fighting each other. You just chose this dog, like on this side. Yep. So anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. No, so no, it's great. That's a great call, actually. And it's something I talk a lot about in the book is, during this time, so I this is when my reading journey started, my writing journey started, my exercise journey started, which I'm still on today. So it's been, 650 days or whatever it's been since March 15th of 2020. There's not been a day that I've missed writing or reading learning something new every day, which for me is reading a book or exercising every single day. So this was, once again, something I did before, but I didn't have a why behind it. And I'll tell you why. The whole story goes on, I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit here, but
go ahead.
So
people can buy your book, so you don't have to give the whole thing today.
Well, no, that's fair. So anyway, so we're back in the NICU, and slowly but surely, Emilia starts to improve, and things are for a while we're looking pretty positive. Along the way, she ended up developing this infection called NEC. It's called necrotizing endocolitis or something along those lines. Basically, what it is it's very common in preemies, especially preemies. She's a micro preemie, actually. So it's very common in preemies and micro preemies of her age, where NEC is what it's called. Their intestines are their microbiomes are not set yet. So doctors still, it's like a mystery of the micropreemie world still as to why this even happens, but it happens very regularly and can happen very suddenly, where their small intestines start to actually perforate. Their insides aren't able to process what's coming through their body, and like literally their abdomen leaks, and all that stuff that's in their intestines leaks out into their body, and obviously that can cause a bacterial infection and sepsis and a lot of other stuff. And it's really, really, really dangerous. Like so much so that, babies can be totally healthy at the start of the NICU nurse's shift. And by the, 5 hours later, they're dead, and it's, and it can happen just like that. And it's like life and death in the NICU is no joke. I mean, with like, it is every day when you're dealing with babies that are this young, and anything can happen at any time. So early on in Emilia's stay in the NICU, about 7 or 8 days into the whole entire process, she developed NEC. Luckily, we caught it really early because we could see her abdomen starting to swell a little bit, and the X-ray nurses and all the doctors and surgeons and everything came in and were evaluating her, and we got her on antibiotics early, and we did determine that her intestines did perforate later on down the road, but we were able to stop it, so it didn't have the sepsis, the acute situation to develop, so she was able to survive past that. So the plan was always to put into place of give her some time to heal. We'll see what the damage was in her intestines later on down the road, because it's really hard to operate on a 1 pound 1 ounce baby, the plan was, maybe in 10-15 days or so, we'll revisit all this. We'll do an ostomy, which I don't know if you know what an ostomy is, but it's when you.
I doubt a lot of people do. So go ahead and share whether I do or not.
It's when you have like those little bags that people their feces go into, I guess. So that's an ostomy. It's when they bring your intestines to the surface of your body, and then your intestines go, your waste goes into a bag, right?
Were you watching this, by the way?
The surgery?
Yeah, were you?
No, they won't let you be in the room for the surgery.
I was gonna say, like that's intense to see your child if you're like there, like seeing all this take place. But just knowing it is tough. But anyways,
it's insane. I mean, talk about a hard job. Like, be a neonatology surgeon, like operating on a child that's somebody's child, but somebody's a 1 pound 1 ounce tiny human that it's unreal. It blows my mind.
It blows my mind. It's grateful with technology. When people diss technology, this is one of those things where you're grateful for it. And just something that popped in my head that I wanted to ask you or whatever. Like, as a man, as a father, like you want to be emotionally there for your wife, but you're also emotionally going through what she's going through, like with this child. So like not that she's not emotionally there for you too as your partner, but it's just one of these things where there's got to be so much going on in your mind during all of this. Like 1 minute you're trying to work out, you're trying to be disciplined, trying to be healthy, mind, body, spirit, all these things. You're trying to be there for your wife. You're trying to be strong, but you're also like, you're emotional. I'm sure you're crying. There's all these things like that is what is like, man, like how, like what, like, I think you've kind of shared it, but that's just what's going. I know it's not quite a question, but just like, that's what I'm thinking about. Like while you're telling this great story, I want people to really just like feel like, put yourself in his position, like as a man or a woman or whatever, like when your partner is just being a part, like, and that just in itself had to be do you even give yourself the time to think? Were you just like go mode and like you cried when you could, and then you were here for your wife, and then you were there for your child, and then just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good question. And yes, everybody processes things differently. And I talk a lot about this in the book, with my own, reflective after the fact thoughts and all this stuff. But no, the honest to God truth is, like I said, in a traumatic environment, it kind of brings out your true character that's deep down inside of you. For me, like the more traumatic, right. Yeah. I'm an eternal optimist. Like that is who I am at my core. And, when
similar, so
in the weirdest way possible, like the hardest parts of the time in the NICU for me were when things were okay. Like when we did have those lulls, where it was like, it doesn't seem like the end of the world is coming to play, every single minute of every single hour. Like when I was able to be in that environment, like I knew what to do because that's how I operate. That's how I am. Like when the pressure rises, like I'm that's when I'm at my best. When I don't have that, that's when it's the hardest to keep those things, that balance, and actually, ironically, that's why you need your partner. This is my wife is like the ultimate endurance champ. Like, that's when she's at her best. So like when I could finally take a break from being who I was in those really stressful environments that she's not great in, she was really great when I was not in those, places. Cause then I let my head wander. Like when all I have to do is just go, like when I'm in that safe space, then you start to wander all over the place, and that's when I would get in trouble. Yeah.
There's actually real science behind that. Like, as far as like, it's not everybody, it's actually like, I think 5% of the population, they believe, possesses, again, like a certain genetic makeup code, whatever, call what you will. But the point is like, where like people like you, me, and others can develop this too. You don't have to have the DNA, but like where you actually thrive under pressure, and like what you said, I pulled this up. I wear this every day. It's just a reminder. Not that I need it, but I told you yesterday, I have like things all over. If you come in my drive my truck or anywhere, like I got stuff. It's just it's because I have my moments too, and I don't always have like a motivational coach or a trainer next to me, and so like I'm my own sometimes. Anyways, this bracelet just says the best view comes after the hardest climb. Now, for those that know me, I'm a avid hiker, and it's so true. Some of the hardest climbs and hikes that we've done have had the best views, but also in life, like when you're put up against that task, you either stop or you go. But when you go, there's something to be learned from it. Like some of you said earlier, you didn't say it quite like this, but like every day is a chance to grow. But we can only grow through like stimulus, through stress, know? And so like, this is some of the things that helped you grow in all aspects, where some people let these things cause them to stop. So I just wanted to pause you there to like kind of open that up a little bit more, and just what you're discussing, but continue on. Like, I'm loving this story. I'm enjoying it. I'm captivated. So
fair enough. Well, I appreciate that. So after the ostomy that happens with her, and that was a really, really, really scary surgery that we had been building up to for a lot of, for like 10 days or so or whatever, after her initial scare. Everything went great. She was healing well, everything was going good. We're about 30 days or 32 days or so into our journey with her at this point in time. And, the doctors, the surgeons in particular, would come by every single day to do a quick check of her surgery, just to check to make sure everything was okay and, healing well, yada, yada, yada. And on this one particular day, about, I think it was probably about 34 days, I think, into the whole experience. And the only reason I know these days like the back of my hands, because we were journaling about it all at the same time. So we didn't know what was going to come. So when you read the book, like, and you're reading my journals, which I weave in and out of the story of her life in the first half of the book, like you're watching me write in real time in a weird way. I like to call this, there's a book that I read along this journey that I talk a lot about, a lot of different books that I read on this journey, but one called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but it's an incredible book. It really changed the way that I think about a lot of things in a lot of ways. But it really just goes into the detail about how we think and how we process stuff, and how biases and heuristics and things like that can naturally screw us up a little bit. But at the end of the day,
no, I know what you're saying, like real quick, but like on that, just your thoughts and everything else, like people don't realize like what you say to yourself. Like one of the things in my book I have in the latter chapters is the story you tell yourself, like what you literally say out loud, what you think starts to develop into your life. So it's like,
Yes.
and we're so busy to really put thought into a lot of things, if you guys are still following me. And what I mean by that is like, we need more time. And this has been one of my biggest growths over the past year of slowing down, calming down. One of the things that I do now is I literally find time to get into the woods by myself, which was hard because it's like, oh, I'm being selfish, but I'm like, I need to do that too, and just meditate, breathe, whatever. And I've had some of the best thoughts. I've been able to be a creative in other aspects. I've gotten better night's sleeps. And it's like, you and me are at these points, or like, for those that are listening that are like all like at a really good place, there's always layers and levels as long as you have breath in your lungs. So like at this point, it's like, it's a small incremental things. Now, if you're beginning a certain kind of journey, just know that every little bit is going to help too. And so like, I'm just saying that like, so like, even just like saying things from, well, I wish to, I will, right? Those kinds of say, so like, or I am, you know, like it's already happening, those affirmation type things, or like just planning it. Like, for example, like next year, like in a leap of faith, we got out of camper this past year and I already planned out all our trips, hoping it all works out, like not thinking about anything else. But I kind of like, I'm learning more to go with my gut decision because it's gotten me this far and it's made some of the best decisions in my life, like this gym, this book, and all these other things. I didn't think about it. I just kind of breathe, meditate, calm the mind. So anyways, I want to pause or stop there with that. But I just want people to think like, take time to breathe in before you do a lot of things.
Yep.
Like, for example, I breathe in before I give my kids a hug, and while I give it, and it makes for a better, more connecting hug instead of just like getting a quick hug in and then going off to do whatever. Like, slow down. You'll actually find yourself having more time and more productivity because you'll calm your mind down. So again, kind of on what you were talking about. So I just wanted to elaborate a little bit.
It's about stop and reflection. I mean, it's about reflecting. It's about taking time to process your own thoughts and to not just keep going and going and going. Like,
or have something to think for you, like technology, you know, the downside of it all.
Yeah, that's the other choice. I mean, somebody else has either thought for you and you're just getting inundated with their thoughts, and then you just keep going, or you can stop yourself. And that's been a big change in my life as well. But anyway, so we're back at day 34, and my daughter, the surgeons are coming by to check on her surgery from her last big ostomy operation, and they find this like her bowel is starting to expand a little bit again, and in her belly, and the surgeon comes by, and keep in mind, like, only my wife or I could be at the hospital at any given point in time because of coronavirus restrictions.
Yeah, COVID, kind of. Yeah.
So she was the one that was there that morning when the surgery team came by, and so I wasn't even there, and because we would take shifts, like every 5 hours we would see each other in the hallway, passing in the hospitals. One of us was leaving and the other one was coming in. That was about the only time we ever saw each other. Like, it was really hard. So my wife is there, the surgery team comes by, and they're like, hey, this isn't a big deal at all. It seems like it's a gas bubble or something like that. Like let's but we want to go in and open up her surgery suture and go in and unkink her bowels. So we just think that her bowels are got kinked up, and it's causing a gas bubble or something along those lines. So my wife, of course, says, yeah, go ahead, fine, no big deal. So we didn't think anything was going on this particular day. So the surgery team goes back in to go do this really quick minor procedure to do something, to take a look at something they had a little concern about. And they ended up finding out that her scar tissue had like completely blocked off her intestines again. Wow. And she was in a bad shape as well. So they took the opportunity while they were already in there they had to do another ostomy. And this time it was way higher up in her bowel section. And basically she had another huge traumatic surgery about 10 days after her first traumatic surgery. And it just sent her body into disarray. The post-surgical complications from that, I won't get into the graphic details that you can read it in the book if you want, because it's in there, but slowly but surely her body started shutting down. What's that?
And you had to have these surgeries. There wasn't a question. These had to be done. There wasn't like no, continue. I want you to finish up. I do have some questions, but I want you to finish.
Yeah. So anyway, her, long story short, her body just started a cascade of, over the next 4 or 5 days of low blood pressures and all the kind of drugs you can possibly imagine, surgical intervention after or medical intervention after medical intervention, and a lot of pain and swelling. She was like 3 or 4 times the size that she was before because of all the fluids they were pumping in her. Eventually, all the low blood pressure started to shut down some of her organs, and her kidneys started to fail, and she couldn't pee any of this fluid off. And then she started to have like heart arrhythmia issues, and we're watching all this happen on the sidelines, and it's just terrifying, you know. And this happened over about 4 or 5 day period of time. You know, eventually, like the hardest decision I've ever had to make in my life, but you know, we had to make a decision to end Emilia's battle. I mean, you know, this is something I talk a lot about, and this will probably tug at your heartstrings a little bit as a father of 3. You know, as an athlete myself, and as somebody, you're an athlete, you know, and you own a gym, you know, like I've always had the dream of being a sports dad someday, you know, and it was always something that I don't know. It's harder to probably watch your kids. I'm going to ask you this: is it harder to watch your kids on the sidelines than it is to watch them perform, than for you to perform?
Oh, for sure. Like,
how do you do that? How do you watch your kids fail?
Funny,
yeah.
Growing up, I'm glad you asked this question. Yeah. So I was getting emotional, man. Like, this is, so for those who listen, like, being a man is I talk about it in my book, being a protector, but it's okay to cry. Like, it's okay to be like, and especially for other men, because that's just like, this is how men show love. We may not say I love you to another man, but being there emotionally vulnerable with another man, I think that's what real men do, because we can be tough and we can live. But anyways, back to your question. I grew up with one of those crazy dads. I played soccer and sports like that would yell and would belittle, and like if I missed a goal, like, how do you miss this big goal? Like, where I was like, I'm not going to be that guy. That's my wife a little bit, not quite. My wife's super positive. My wife never throws out the negative stuff like my dad did sometimes. And not dissing on my dad, it's just facts. Like, thanks, Dad, I love you, but it's just facts. So the point is like, so I don't do that, but I am passionate, like, about things. And when I'm passionate, no holds barred. Right. So like, for example, me, whatever. But like, I'll let them score goals on me, but I will give them a little competition, because I want to teach them the benefits of loss and the benefits of win. And somebody say in my house is they're either winning or learning. I'm a big proponent of, like, teams should win and lose and keep score. For those, if I offended you, I'm sorry. It's just like, we lose in life more than we win, and we learn from our losses and we grow from them. Yes. So when we take away losing at a young age, we're doing hard. I'm done with that. Point is, so we're either winning or learning. So like, I don't care to lose, but I'll give him some competition. My son's been doing 100. He was supposed to do 100 shots a week by his coach. He's done 100 shots a day over the last few days. Pretty cool. Nice. Anyways, so my daughter started running cross country this year, and this is a cool story. Like, she started running cross country, and I was excited because I ran in high school along with soccer and stuff. So I'm like in it. I knew she was skillful, and I knew my kids had some like natural abilities, and plus they live in a gym, and we're very active. So I knew she wouldn't be last. Right. I'm assuming like above average, maybe like somewhere in the middle, a little ahead. That's what I'm thinking, because she's not like the longest leg or the tallest, and we've never really gone running. But it's like, if you're going to do this before your first practice, you and I are going to start running. So we started running Sundays for like 2 miles. It was a struggle bus. So I was blown away when I heard her mile test at her first practice was like 7 something, like 7:30. I was like, that's whoa, awesome. She was faster than all the boys at the time. That's awesome. She was actually faster than everybody, like everybody, all the boys, all the girls. I believe so. If there was anything, maybe one boy beat her, but like she was the fastest one on the team. Now some of the boys have obviously caught up. They're starting to develop testosterone. Long story short, when I finally started going into her races, I didn't know. I was like, hey, go Erin. That's my daughter's name. She's 12. I'm literally running the race with her. Right. And I'm like, crazy dad. I'm like, but it's all positive. Like, no, you got this. You do it. I was like blown away. Like in her first race, we're talking cross country. For those that don't know cross country, I think everybody knows it. There's a lot of people in these races. Like, there's a lot of people. Like, and at her age, it's anywhere from like 50 to 300. So first race, she's like literally her and another girl, like neck and neck. All the other, they're dusting her. I'm like, whoa, she could literally get first or second. Like, like she's getting one or the other. So I'm like, holy crap. Like literally, so that they came out of the woods. I think it's a mile left. I'm like, I think I got Crocs on. I don't even know. I'm horrible. I have my other daughter with me who's like 5 at the time. I'm running the last race. You got it. And like, I saw her, like, her face is like struggling. It's hard. This is our first cross country race. The hills, they're not easy for anybody, let alone a 12-year-old girl who's never done anything like this. And she's like, I don't think she really knew where she was. And I saw her starting to slow down. I was like, kick it, go. You got much more. You got this. You're doing incredible. There wasn't really. I was like, there's somebody coming up behind you. Like I said that. And she took off like this other life form. And I was so proud of her. I gave her the biggest hug. I'm sweating. She's sweating. And then my little 5-year-old, Daddy, you left me. She's 5, by the way. But it was like I took off running with her and I almost left my 5-year-old behind. But so yeah, to answer your question, yeah, when I'm passionate, if you've known me for just a short period of time, but like, my kids are like, I'd say I'm a dad and a husband first, and everything else is just vehicles to be better at that. Doesn't mean I don't love training, love writing, all these things. Those are just ways of spreading love, helping other people. Don't love doing this podcast with you right now, but it's just like I'm on this planet to make better version of myself. So with that, I know like I grew up through a lot of challenges, through a lot of pain, and it made me who I am. So in a weird way, I'm grateful for that, because I wouldn't be the man, the husband, the business owner, the writer, and everything if these things didn't happen. Right. So in a way, I want to inflict challenges to my kids. So that's always a catch. Like I'm their dad and I want to love them and give them grace, but I also want to challenge and change them. So like to answer your question, yeah, like I love seeing them win or do really well. My son just had a hockey game this past weekend when they won 10-0. Dude, I'm like more excited than I think they are about it. It's like, yeah, we won, whatever. I'm like, you won! Like I'm screaming. So I hope that answered your question. But like like my kids are my life. So when you're telling all these stories today, like my heart breaks. But I want people to hear this story because, like I said, I know a number of people who could relate, and hopefully they find it find some value in this. And if not, I hope people that have never had kids listen to the story, because it'll give you some tools in your tool belt. Because sounds like what you and I both have in our life. I tell people it's not like we're born a different way. We got amazing things gifted to us. It's just we have tools when things come. We're like Monday time change. I woke up in a weird headspace and I wanted to blame time change. We also were traveling over the weekend for lacrosse tournaments. I went to my tools, which was a cold shower, getting some workout in, doing some writing and journaling, and I felt better already. So anyways, so that answers that question. I hope so. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
I went on there for a little bit. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Cause our children are exciting, they inspire us. Right. So, I mean, that's really what the whole book's about, is my daughter changed my life and inspired me. So her just fight and endurance and never quit. So I just want to be crystal clear about one thing. So like at this point in time in our journey, she was in a bad shape. I had to make the call to end my daughter's life. And the reason I brought up the whole sports dad thing is because, I made a vow to her 2 days before that I was like, I won't pull you out of the game. I promise. Like it was, I'd sat there and I was like, I'm not going to do it,
unfortunately, your voice, it's
really hard, man. Like,
I just thank you for like sharing all this, man. I can see, because like same thing, like, I've never dealt with this and I pray, but in a weird way, it's something always in the back of my mind. Like I want to like a defense mechanism, because I hear stories like yours and I want to, and I also like, I think in a weird way, like, what if something happens to me? Because I know we're not promised tomorrow. So it's just like, man, I applaud you for being vulnerable and sharing this story, and in the hopes that it might help other people. And if anything, continuing to share your daughter and bring life to such a painful part of yours and your wife's life. But,
yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And like I said, my mission in life is to talk about my daughter and how amazing she was. So like, that's
she sounds like it, man.
It was unreal. So the story gets even more inspiring in a little bit. So after we decide, well, there's two topics we could talk about here. The first one is that mindset switch, when it goes from we're not giving up to now you're just looking, now you've made that switch. Now you're just looking for reasons you're looking for ways to not be optimistic anymore. And like, that's one thing I would encourage anybody, is to just never, once you flip that switch, it's over, man. Like, I mean, that's it. Like once you've resigned to give up on something, you're going to find ways to give up on it. Don't do that. And it, never lose hope of, there's something, you ever heard of the Stockdale paradox? You ever heard of that before?
Sounds familiar, but go ahead, share.
General Stockdale was a Vietnam War prisoner of war veteran that was in prisoner of war camps for like 7 years or something like that. And,
Okay, now I just didn't remember the name. Yeah.
So his Stockdale paradox was, they asked him, how did you do it? How do you stay in a prison? How do you survive in a prisoner of war camp for 7 years or something like that? And this is what the Stockdale paradox is. Basically, you have to be an eternal optimist and at the same time an extreme realist at the exact same time. And it's almost an impossibility to do for most people. You have to always believe the best is going to happen, but then deal with the brutal facts right in front of your face at any given point in time. But have that at the same time, always belief in the background that's just deep into your subconscious. You never give up. And, that's the approach that I wanted to take to this whole situation. But the moment that I got rid of my extreme optimism portion of all this, and I was just looking at the brutal facts, that was when you start to look for ways to end this journey. So that was what I was looking for at that time. And there's a lot more to that story as you read in the book, but long story short, we had to make the call to end Emilia's battle. This is when the craziest stuff kicked off, though, when I truly knew how amazing my daughter was. So we make this call to end her life. And I thought, obviously this is something I've never done before. And I mean, I'm curious to hear what anybody's thoughts would be about, when you extubate somebody that's on a ventilator, I don't know, how long do you think they can survive? How long would you think somebody could survive?
No, I would think seconds, if that even. Yeah.
I guess I was thinking seconds. I asked the doctors the same thing. I was thinking similar, like maybe a few minutes. I don't know. No, it was 7 hours, man. 7 hours. My wife.
You have ever put? Oh Jesus! Sorry. Whoa.
Yeah, 7 hours. My wife, my daughter is unreal. She never quit ever. She would never give up, even though I knew that this was. It was the hardest thing that it's 7 hours. I sat there and watched my wife for 7 hours hold my daughter as she slowly expired for 7 hours. It was unreal to watch how just this kid did not want to give up her chance of life. She's just inspiring. How did you ever start? Oh, maybe we should hook her back up. Was that even an option? We talked. We talked about her body. 7 hours. Her body was in such bad shape.
But it's 7 hours. That I would have I don't know. I don't know. I can't imagine. I don't know. Could have been another child. Maybe it's just man, we're hearing a lot about you. How was your wife? Obviously she had to be in full support because it's her child too. She carried it, for 5, over 5 months. So it's how was your wife through all that?
That's a story that you have to ask her about, because
it's kind of what I figured,
everybody's pain is different,
Yeah.
I would never want to speak for her because she's
and I agree. In my book, I talk about some things, but I was this is my story. If you want to, other people can share their version of it too.
Right.
I had family members involved, obviously, with a lot of my story. Another question: do you think it would have been different if this wasn't during Corona? Do you think it would have had any different effect on the outcome? Or
and actually, there's a big reason why. The reason when my mindset shifted from being that Stockdale paradox, I guess, if you will, mindset that we had before, when I vowed to my daughter that I would not take her out of the game, from 2 days before that. The only reason that changed is because when this is kind of complicated to explain, but because only one parent could be there at any given point in time. The only time that my wife and I, that we were ever together as a family with my daughter, together in a room together, was after her second surgery, and when she officially got put on epinephrine, which is have you ever heard of an EpiPen? The thing that you stab into to jolt your heart. Well, she was on an epi drip just to keep her heart going, to pump enough blood pressure into her veins to keep her body from shutting down. So when the hospital puts you on that, for whatever reason during coronavirus, they were like, look, this is the most life-threatening of situations you can possibly be in at this point in time. They were like, we're going to allow you both to be in there together in the hospital together. And I was like, thank God. That was the first time since we'd been parents 39 days into this whole entire journey, or 34 days into this whole journey, that we were actually able to be a family together in a fucking room. In a room together as a family.
It's emotion, like, passion, stuff comes out, man. You're good.
It's mind blowing to me to even think that, like, you and your wife spending the time with your child for the first time, 34 days together in the same room together. Like, can you imagine that?
Yeah, no, I can't. And like, there's real power and energy transfer and connection and human connection. You know, that's one thing, like, if anything, the way the world is going, like, we're getting so disconnected in artificial environments. I really, truly believe human connection can save lives.
Yes.
Like, bring life, obviously, grow life and like extend life. Like, you know, we are so powerful internally, and that's why we need to be vulnerable, give out our stories, give information, connect. But there's this whole other, like, alter reality, and people, like, with way more money than we can imagine, trying to turn it into an artificial world. And like, why, like, and even in your stories, human connection, you know, being connected to everything. Like, not to say your doctors didn't do the best damn job possible, but like, when you're more connected to everything involved, but you're also like, all these doctors are going home, you're going home, who knows, people involved all across the board are going home stressed about this corona thing that no one knew much about in the very beginning. And at the end of the day, we're all fearful. And, you know, I think this is so powerful, like, you know, like your story too, because one thing I know that's come out of this is people who have been through something similar, or lost a child in early age or soon after birth, that I know it's like, and the people just vow never have kids again. So yeah, like, because they don't ever want to go through that again. But like, share, if you don't mind, share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole second half of the story. So after my daughter, you know, she passes away, that the first half of the story of I Can't Imagine is her life, right? And what inspired me. The second half is me rebuilding my world, you know, basically. I call it my atomic bomb theory, where you know, like something, a tragedy or a trauma just literally blows up your world. Everything that you knew doesn't exist anymore. Like, what do you do at that point in time? You know, for me, it was a clean slate. And it was something where I was like, look, like, I can do whatever I want to do at this point in time. And what I want to do is I want to talk about my daughter, this little tiny inspiring, like, just hero of mine. Like, I mean, like, every single day, like, it's seared into my brain, like that journey that we were on together, and watching her last 7 hours of her life, you know, like, I mean, it is something that I will spend the rest of my days talking about how inspiring she is and how she changed my life. And what the second half of the story is how she changed my life and how I manifested that into actions, and how I turned that pain into purpose and a mission for us two to go live together and to go try to, you know, be better people for other people, you know, and to help other people and to share stories like this and to talk to people like you and to go meet on Twitter and to go, you know, and this is my mission. And this conversation today, where I get
because of your daughter's story, you can share her story through you, and what was like, and I can't imagine you have found purpose after the pain, essentially. Not trying to promote both our books at the same time, but literally, like, that is just, you know. And I like what you said earlier, like, it was a little bit ago, but you being an eternal optimist and extremely realist, like, this is the situation, let's be real, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. I actually stole that from my daughter. Like, I put that in my book because it's like, you know, everything's not rainbows and unicorns, but like, you can still be optimistic. And, you know, like I say sometimes, like, you know, even though life gives us a lot of crap, you know, we can still find purpose, we can still find joy, we can find drive through it. It's hard, it's challenging, as you've shared, but by doing so, like, your daughter's life goes on, lives on, and has a lot of purpose. Like, your daughter is helping change people's lives in a positive way, which has gotta be inspiring for you to know that, like, your daughter's like,
people reach out to me and tell me about how amazing Emilia is. And I'm like, man, like, that just feels so good. I mean, she's actually the co-author of the book. I put her name on the book as it's co-written by Emilia Quinn.
It wouldn't have been there. Yeah, that
exactly.
Sense. And I say something else, just to pause for a second. Like, was like, I remind people when I hear them say negative things or whatever about kids or whatever kids he's like. I
Yes.
spend so much time with my kids. I've learned so much or been reminded of. I've gotten so much wisdom by being with my children.
Oh yeah.
At every stage of every age. And so like I tell people to enjoy and be in the moment, be in it, like be in it currently as best you can. It's so hard for all of us. So like I can relate. So like just be in it, because like learning can be all around you, especially like even if they can't talk.
Yeah,
You know,
100%. No, so a part of my life and why it's called I Can't Imagine is this is no joke. I literally try to imagine my daughter with me all day, every day. I had this moment along this journey of my own recovery, I guess, not recovery, of my own like my own quest, I guess, through finding purpose again. Right. Yeah. I don't know. I was in the shower one day, actually, ironically, and there's a little light above my like a window above my like just shower, tiled shower, whatever, right? And as the light was coming in, like it was just that perfect point of the day when it was coming in from a certain direction, and I was in the shower and I could see the steam like coming off my arm, like through the light, and I had this moment where I looked at it and I was like, man, there's so many things in this world that we can't see that are going on all around us. And I was like this is no joke. This is when the book really kicked off. As I got done with the shower, I ran upstairs and I couldn't help but to think like, maybe Emilia is with me all day, every day, and why can't I live my life that way with her when I write or go on go run or go read a new book or go, why can't I be a dad without being a dad, in the present? And that's what I Can't Imagine is about. It's about her life. And then it's about me reimagining my life with her together with me, everything that I do. And these are, right now she's with me as we're having this conversation.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I think this is kind of a good to like gear it back into the walk, and I'll explain why. But maybe you already know where I'm going with this, but I'm big on nature. Big into nature. Heck, if you look at if you look at my book, if you guys can see this, I literally have trees and sunshine. Even though it's shadowy and dark down here, there's always a light shining through. So if anybody wants to know the purpose behind that book cover, I can tell more later, but we're here for you. But the point is like, if you know anything about nature, like when a tree falls in the forest, not that if you hear it or not, mushrooms and things help decay it to feed other things. Energy doesn't go away, it just transfers.
Yep.
So like we're talking about her, like when people die, like this is not, like they don't go essentially away. It's just there's still energy within inside of us that has to go or be transferred. So who's not to say that she's not all around you or with you or writing, but you have to be open to it, to receiving it. Something I've been more open to, like for example, like what I said earlier about take this is a one step further for everyone. When you hug somebody you really care about, or even just hugging somebody, you obviously don't, nowadays we don't touch people we don't feel safe with. So so like when you're hugging somebody, take a second, don't just give them a hug, receive the hug. And you're like, what are you talking about? Pause, breathe, and like feel their hands. As weird as it sounds, don't sexualize it. I'm not talking about like I could hug Chris right now and not get all weird about it. Like I'm breathing it in, like receiving it as much. You can give it, but like we just meant like I'm giving you a hug, like or the back pat. But like try to actually receive it. So same thing. Like there's an energy transfer, and energy is all around us. And not to get all hippy dippy here, but it's just she could be around you. Who's to say she's not? So like when you start having that mindset, I think it helps. And that's why I go into nature with my kids and also by myself. There's this connection. And yeah, sometimes I go barefoot. Heck, I'm barefoot right now. Like this is me, because you get a better connection. And I don't want to go on the foot thing, but like when we don't use things, we lose things. When we have restrictive or walls put up because of all the pain that we've suffered, which is common. Like with my story, for those that are listening because they know Chris and don't know me, you can read a lot of my book. I don't want to dive into this. It'll be hopefully a separate podcast, but I've been on a few. But literally like mine, I was like, for example, my pain literally starts at birth. Like I was supposed to be born with a twin. They didn't make it. I did. Why? And then it turned into like child abuse from people that I knew, from babysitters, the family members, to sexual, to rape, these things like at age 4, 5, 6, all the way up to like 9. And then it just continued on. Like So like I was in a very dark place. Like these are the things, but like I would keep asking myself why. So like I got into this idea of like, I just want to serve and I just want to love and I just want to give. And I was very pessimistic. And I don't want to tell my whole story today, but like I had to realize there was purpose and little things are when I opened up my mind to that kind of idea. Like when for example, I tore my rotator cuff in high school wrestling, and you said something earlier about like you like preparing you. You don't realize a lot of things are just preparing you. Like it's like you don't understand that this is happening, and it sucks when it's happening, but it's preparing for something later on. Well, this happened. I couldn't wrestle anymore, and at the time I was just like, this sucks. And this was 1996. So in 1996, like it was like a long process, rotator cuff surgery, all four gone, physical therapy with some exercise, whatever, told that I couldn't, move my arm past certain for the rest of my life. And all these self-limiting beliefs are being thrown at me. But I have a no limits attitude. And if I wouldn't have opened my mind that there's purpose in this pain, literally physical pain, I wouldn't be where I am. The amount of people I've helped with shoulder issues get back into their normal life, playing with their kids, giving them life again through shoulder because I set no limits. Like, but if I didn't get that injury, I wouldn't know how to recover from that injury. If I didn't have that like optimistic attitude, like you obviously do, like this is happening. Okay, how do I navigate in and around through? Again, so like I always challenge people that are we all are going through.
Everyone's going through something
painful, but like, yeah. So, but back to the nature, like I wanted to talk about that because we do have to wrap up here soon. But like, what was it like? You were saying like going for a walk. You wanted me to ask you about that later. So like that's connected. Yeah. Talking about the nature.
So the whole well, your tree comments. I went on this natural history. Like I said, I read every day, right? I went on this natural history kick for like a month straight, where I read.
I love it.
This book, The Botany of Desire, The Hidden Life of Trees, The Entangled Life, which is about fungi. This book called I Contain Multitudes, which is about bacteria and your gut and the
I might actually want to see that book.
It's so good. No, all of them were so good. It was just compounding. You're so right. Like the circle, like I look at the symbiosis of this world now. I look at everything so differently these days. That's what this journey that I've been on with my daughter has inspired for the past. That's what the nature walk, coming back to that, I guess, if you will. So what ended up happening when after Emilia passed away, I channeled immediately. I knew my why. For the first time in my life, I had a why. I didn't have a, everybody talks about their why all day, every day, right? Like you hear that on these stupid, LinkedIn posts and whatever, and Instagram posts, like, what's your why? Like everybody needs a why, blah, blah, blah. Like, anyway.
No, I know.
And I'm not saying it's not corny, because it is important, but like my whole life I'd always been like, whatever, I don't care. Like, my why is I work hard, like whatever, I don't know, grit, passion, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can make up whatever you want to make up. Well, with Emilia, I had a why. I had a searing reason for me to get up every single day and to go and try to be the best person that I can be for the rest of my life. So because of that, I started to, like I said, read every day, continued on with those same habits that we had learned in the NICU, of reading every day, writing every day, reflecting every day, and exercising every day. So these compounding results, actually another great book you can read someday, it's called The Compound Effect, if you haven't ever read that one. It's about like the little tiny habits that happen every single day that add up over time, that all of a sudden you have this exponential growth curve of doing the same thing, these little stupid things of reading for 30 minutes a day. And all of a sudden, a year and a half later, you've read 180 books, and you're like, wow. Like you tell somebody you read 180 books and they're like, what? Like, that's crazy. What are you doing every day? And I'm like, nothing. I read for like 30 minutes. Like, it's not that big a deal. But if you do it every day and you do it for a really long period of time, all of a sudden you write every day for an hour a day. Like all of a sudden you got a 400-page book, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, long story short, like one of continuing on with that why that Emilia had showed myself and my wife and I was terrified of our marriage falling apart. And I, saw some statistic. We talked about this yesterday. I saw some statistic that was like 80% or something like that of marriages that suffer a child loss, end in divorce. And I didn't want that to be the case.
I've heard that statistic actually. Yeah. I'm familiar with that.
It's scary. It scared the hell out of me. And I was like, I got to do something, I got to use the knowledge that I learned from my daughter and my why and figure out what we do. So my wife and I, the first day after Emilia passed away, we vowed to take this, what we called our Emilia walk. So every single day we would take a little walk, and just talk about our daughter, and just, it was the first time we got out of the house, I mean, like every day. It was the first day after she passed away. And we kept that habit going for a few months after that. And the only reason it stopped was because my wife got pregnant again. And little Luca, my son, is here now. So
that's incredible. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
It's like and it just shows, like, this came to my mind, and maybe this would be the title of the podcast, coupled with the I can't imagine, but it's just how death can bring life. Like, death is very, but like we just talked about, that the circle of life, the trees, like the death of the tree brings life, but like this has brought life because of your mindset too, of like, okay, how can we, instead of me being in like this stupor, this whatever, this depression, sadness, what the alternative, and my marriage suffering, by being aware that this is common, that marriage suffers when a childhood death happens. Let me be an optimist. Let's bring life into our marriage. And literally you ended up bringing life into the world, but also her story is like bringing life into other people. Heck, it's motivating me, man. Like, so it's like, this is like, it's inspiring. And while I'm sure there's still emotional tolls, like when you talked about it earlier on in this episode, it's just like, but you also know like the purpose after the pain through it all. So I thank you. And congratulations again. I think that's so exciting. People need to hear that too. Like it's all the story you tell yourselves, and you believe that it was possible you could have another kid and it could be healthy, and if it wasn't, that you knew how to deal with it, you were prepared. I think
ironically,
if I put words in your mouth,
ironically, my son was born at 28 weeks, and so he was super premature as well. So we spent 90 days in the NICU with him after he was born, but we knew what to do, and everything was fine. And he got home. He's happy and healthy and doing great. And
that's awesome.
That's actually the end of the book, is the compounding story that led up to my son being born, and all of Emilia's little things along the way that you don't even know that she was doing. As I look back on it now, and when I was writing the book, it was like she had a guiding hand in all of it, and so much so that it wasn't even just like a subtle guiding hand. It was like obvious. Like, we were in the same labor delivery room with Luca that after Emilia was born, we his NICU bed was the next bed over from her NICU bed when he was born.
Was there any PTSD or trauma or anything with that, or did you like any?
It was hard to be back.
It sounds like you just like, this is what we're dealt with. These are our cards. Let's just roll. Like, right? Like, it sounds like that's what's going on right now with you.
That was kind of what it was. The odd part about it was it almost felt more sad for her. But here, I'll say this.
Wow.
I thought more about her the entire time that he was in the NICU than him. I wasn't worried about him. I was like, oh, baby born at 28 weeks, like the survival rate's like 95%. He's fine. Like, everything's gonna be okay. Like, we're just gonna do our thing. 5 weeks
later,
No, it was 12 weeks, but yeah, I mean, it was a long journey in the NICU.
Wait, sorry, I got my math wrong. Yeah.
But he, but I knew that it was gonna be okay. Like it was. I mean, I still had the Stockdale paradox training and all that other stuff. Really, it was more traumatic for me when I saw her not being able to finish this journey, and her not being able to finish her own little NICU marathon, if you will. And, but it was almost like she was passing the torch literally to her brother. She was born she died at 28 weeks and 2 days old, gestationally. So she was born at 22 and 6, and she died at 28 and 3. You know when my son was born gestationally?
I'm sure it's the same number.
28 and 3.
That's crazy.
It's nuts.
I don't believe in coincidences. So
I don't either.
I think. So what do you think all that is?
I think Emilia's been here the whole time doing all this stuff. I think she was like, look, I know that my time was cut short, but like, we don't quit. Like, that's the Emilia Quinn Sears' motto. We don't quit. Like, pass the torch, endure. Her spirits with him. She was guiding all this the whole entire time. This book was her guiding all this stuff. I mean, it all. I mean, I can imagine she's with us every single day. Like, I mean, that's the truth.
So into I can't imagine to I can't imagine, and that's a beautiful story, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Are you guys still going for the walks and getting out into nature? And is that still?
No, we try to. Well, we go on walks. We go on walks with him whenever we can. I mean, but she had a really complicated pregnancy. It was traumatic, and we were in the NICU, like we were literally gone in the NICU for 90 days, like every single day. Like it was hard to find the time. So we were going like walks around the hospital and stuff like that. But anyway, long story short, we still try to do it as much as we can, and it's still really important. And to be fair, that's a good challenge, because like one of my core values is to challenge myself every day. And I need to probably do that again with my wife every single day, because it was a fun experience and we should do it again,
Yeah, I think that was introduced to you for a reason, not to just for the time. I mean, I'm a true believer, like, it's funny when you get outdoors and you go for a walk, connect to nature, like even if you have deadlines with work or other things, like you forget about that and everything always seems to work out because you come back more clear-headed, more organized. So like I challenge everybody, whether you got kids or not, to like step away at least for 30 minutes a day and not bring your phone unless you for some weird reason need it, but don't use it, and just really connect. If you can, get in the woods. And if you're like, I don't like the woods, like seriously, like we were born in nature, we're part of nature. So like I challenge you to try it out, and even try elements. One thing I've known is like we've been in some hikes in some of the best weather, but we've been in some hikes where a torrential downpour literally came down and we were about 3 hours away from our vehicle. And I'm not going to say it was like the most enjoyable during, but it's like what I said earlier on my bracelet. It was like when we got down off that hill, the rain stopped. We had like maybe, but I ended up running, like, I ended up running the rest of the way. I made sure my wife and kids were kid. I got the vehicle and brought it as close as I could. There was a gate, but the point of the story is, guess what? We walk in rain, cold, snow, whatever, and it doesn't phase us anymore, because it's like we went through some of these things and we're like, oh, it's like, we know how to deal with it. So it's just like, okay, these are the elements presented before us. Okay, we're going sledding anyways. We're going walking anyways. The only thing that might stop, because I got young kids, is like it's a severe thunderstorm, obviously for safety reasons. But like torrential downpours, no, we just come back soaked.
Nice.
My wife might not like it so much, but like when we come back wet in our clothes. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things that totally enjoy. Man, I really, really enjoyed this. This was amazing. I'm definitely like, I people are going to want to know, and I want to know, like, is there anything you're working on right now? Anything else you'd like to share? You've shared plenty one step furthers, I think, but if there was anything else left out on the table, you definitely, I just want to get this in.
Yeah, man, my mission is living for two. She's inspired me to do so many new projects. And I talk about this in the book too. It's our new city that we reimagined. The atomic bomb blew up our old city. What are all the new construction that's going on in the city? And that's a forever infinite game mission for me at this point in time. So there's a whole lot of new construction going on in my city, inspired by Emilia, and doing a lot of other things.
Wow, that's really cool, man. I like that you said living for two. So
so it's so right now, I mean, multiple businesses have been started. Awesome. A non-for-profit's been started. I'm writing my next book, which is, I'm calling it A Year of Magical Learning, which is all the books that Emilia, had got me into the habit of reading every single day, and all the things that I've been learning on this journey, that I'm writing a daily reflection of each one of those books. And
I love that.
Doing 365 days of new books and new reflections, you can read, that people can inspire, So anyway, that's just the start of all this stuff. And I mean, just living life every single day with my daughter, and we'll figure out where we go from there. I don't know where we're going.
And it just shows, like, because of your optimistic attitude towards it all, you've been able to turn it into a lot of cool stuff. And so it's like, well, it was sad during it, and I'm sure there's still moments. It's like, and your wife is there too. So she's like, I know it can be definitely probably harder because they're like literally connected inside. So, but it's just, it's probably also bringing joy and some peace to your wife to see all this happening. I mean, I can't speak for her, but I just know that, like, for those that are listening, like, really listen to this story, listen to it again, share with those that because at the end of the day, like, this could really help some people that are going through some pain, especially the loss of a child, and those questions of, I can't imagine, to why is this happening, to turn it around to like finding purpose through it all. It may not happen, like you said, right away. It may not happen in a month, a day, or a week. It's just the compounding effect of doing healthy things, and just be okay with yourself if there's not a great moment in that day, but just compounding effect of doing things in a positive direction. You don't have to do things that he does or I do. It might be something you create out of your own, but just positive, optimistic, moving step further, one step further each day, just to thrive, really. It starts with survive and then thrive. So Man, that was awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, man. We'll have some links below on how to connect with this guy, even how to get his book. And if you have any ideas for podcasts, let us know. And as always, man, I feel like we should chat again in the future for sure. So
definitely. Yeah.
Thank you again, Chris. I appreciate you, man, being on here. And again, thanks for helping others move one step further. Take care.
Yeah. Appreciate all your time.